Hey guys, this is Julian of Julian Gray Media. Welcome to the Julian Gray Podcast. Today we have Robbie and Max on. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll get right into it.
You first, Max.
What's up, guys? I'm Max Mittelman, and I am a voice actor. And a couple of my roles that you might know me from, I play the One Punch Man, Saitama. I am Ryuji in Persona 5 and Harry Osborn in Spider-Man, and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I'm also a voice actor, talking to a microphone guy for a living.
Yeah.
And I play Spider-Man on Spider-Man with him as my best buddy. And I'm also One Punch Man, but no, I'm not the One Punch Man. You're the One Punch Man.
The alternate version.
Yeah, in a worser world.
They did a recast, and there's a second version floating out there somewhere.
Yeah, a lot worse. And I play Moomin Rider in One Punch Man, and I'm also Tuxedo Mask in Sailor Moon, and Max and I share a bunch of credits together in anime and animation, and this is my dog Zelda. Hi, how are you? She decided she wants to be in the podcast, yeah, man, we're here. We're here to talk to you.
You guys can find their full, I guess, filmography. What do you call it in TV?
Yeah, that's right. Sure.
Our voiceography.
Sure.
A filmography,
Yeah,
a voiceography.
you can find
You're just making
whatever
up words.
they call a discography in film and TV on IMDb.
That is right.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, or just Google us. That's the easiest way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just there's too cool. You have to Google them to find their information.
IMDb is our friend.
Yeah.
Yes. So why don't you tell us about yourselves? How did you get into voice acting? Like, what inspired that career decision when you were, I guess, getting started?
I wasn't good at anything. And actually, that's not true. No, it is true. I wasn't good at anything. And so I came across voiceover. I did 4 years of pre-med in college.
Oh, wow.
And after 4 years, I was like not enjoying it. I was failing. I was failing everything, and that's the real reason I didn't do voiceover. I couldn't cut it as a doctor.
Man.
But yeah. So I discovered voiceover, and it was something that I was really passionate about, and I was doing a lot of acting classes in college, and so I jumped ship, switched my major from whatever it was, biology or kinesiology or whatever I was doing at the time. I switched it 5 times.
So let me ask you, like, what was your first voiceover project, or do you even remember?
My first voiceover project, I did. I was filling in for an actor on Ultimate Spider-Man, actually.
Oh wow!
And I did a little bit of the Rhino on Ultimate Spider-Man. Yeah. But my first original project was on a show called Transformers Rescue Bots, where I played one of the Autobots called Blur.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And what about you, Robbie?
Yeah, my first job was a pilot for Warner Brothers right when I moved out to LA in 2007 after grad school. So
Wow.
I was on a pretty straight theater track my whole life.
For a second, I was thinking a pilot for Warner Brothers.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
oh, you're flying planes.
I was a pilot for Warner Brothers. Yeah, totally. If you look to your right, you'll see the water tower. But no, I was on a pretty straight theater path, acting path my whole life. I went to undergrad for it, got my BA. I went to master's program, got my MFA, and taught the whole time, and basically paid my bills for my whole life from when I was about 14 to about 24 with theater. And then
Wow.
yeah, and then I left grad school, came out to LA 2007, like I said, graduated when I was 25, and booked a pilot for Warner Brothers like right out the gate. Like first
So you
couple.
guys really hit it guns a-blazing.
Yeah, but the addendum is the pilot didn't go, and then the writer's strike in LA happened. So
Oh, man.
so I was like, this is gonna be easy,
Yeah.
and then everything imploded.
That's the
That's
majority of pilots that we book.
Oh yeah,
Don't go.
No, most of them.
That's just the way it is.
Yes.
I think I booked like 7 and had one actually go. I booked 8 and one of them actually went through.
Yeah. Well, then I struggled in LA for about 2 years, and then around in 2009 I started working a lot more steadily. And then about 2010 I was able to to give up sort of any side jobs I might have had. I was teaching at the New York Film Academy. I was bartending. I was catering, like all the actor cliches. Yeah. But I was able to let them go about 8 years ago. So
your dog is making my nose itch, and it kind of probably looks like I do drugs. 'Cause I keep doing this and like sniffling.
Go on, get out of here. Go on, get. She's not gonna leave. She's not gonna leave. She's not gonna leave. She's in it.
So for the musician kids watching this video that might not be versed in, like, I guess the media, the film and TV industry, how would you define a pilot?
Oh, sure.
A pilot is just the first episode that a network does to pitch it, or the first episode that anybody does to pitch to a network, to a creator will, for voiceover anyway, have an idea, they get a cast together, they record it, and they animate it, and they take that finished product and try to shop it around and see if anyone will buy.
And it's pretty unique to television because television is serialized. I'm not aware of it. There's no such thing as a pilot movie unless it's like a concept trailer. Right. It would be the musical
conceptualizing a storyboard or whatever.
Yeah, I mean the movie or the music equivalent would be if someone said to any music kids like, "Hey, we like your stuff. You have an idea for a concept album. Make us one single."
Yeah.
And then if your single hits or if some higher ups like your single, then we'll let you make an album. Yeah, we'll let you make an album. Right. Yeah. So that's sort of the equivalent of what a pilot is, and I would say not even 1 in 10 of them goes. Yeah.
So do you actually, when you're making a pilot, is it only voiceover and storyboard, or do you actually go out and animate the entire?
Well, we
thing?
don't,
I mean,
but they do.
For you all, yeah.
Yeah, they'll typically finish it.
Yeah.
Unless it's just they just know right away it's not good.
Right.
But most of the time,
it's a release ready product then.
Oh yeah, and
for a pilot, right.
we call it canned or shelved if it doesn't get that, and it's literally they from the old school film term, they put the film in a can and stick it on a shelf and nobody ever sees it.
Yeah. Literally canned.
Literally canned. Yeah.
So I was gonna ask, over the years of your voice acting, if you had to pick one project, like a pinnacle project of your career, what is like the most favorite projects you've worked on, or the things that you're most proud of in your voice acting career?
That's tough. We always say that's like picking children.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy every project I do for a different reason. And I think that's why I love voiceover so much, is because there's so much variety in what I get to do. One day, I'm playing a creature. The next or same day, I'm playing like, really down to earth. If it's for a video game, the tone of the game can be really cinematic and gritty, and I love that. At the same time, I love doing like the really broad comedy stuff for animated TV shows for like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. So I can't really. I have trouble picking one thing that I.
Yeah, I couldn't do one. I mean, hopefully I haven't hit my pinnacle yet. Yeah, that's depressing because after that, you know where it goes from there. But, some of my favorites. I mean, Spider-Man's one of my favorites. So it's one of my favorite characters, and I get to work with Max, and he's one of my friends in real life. So that's just been a blast. Rescue Bots was one of my favorites. I was also on that show. That was one of my first reoccurring animated shows as well. What else? Anime World. I love One Punch Man. That was really a blast working on. And
so like if let's say like a fan comes up to you and asks, or they identify you with a character, who would that be?
That's easier. I would say for me it would be Prompto from Final Fantasy 15, Akechi from Persona 5, Tuxedo Mask from Sailor Moon, and Spider-Man. Probably my top 4.
Yeah, and for me, I don't have any fans that come up to me. So,
but you're One Punch Man.
Not true.
For me, it's probably One Punch Man and Ryuji from Persona 5, and I guess all the stuff I named at the top. King from Seven Deadly Sins.
Oh yeah, for sure. What's another one you get a lot?
Plague from Miraculous
Ladybug. Yeah, it's got a big fandom.
So do you have any like obscure stories? I know you guys go like, you tour around with this as voice actors. As you represent these characters, people recognize the characters. So you guys do conventions and things like that. Do you have any like interesting stories, or just tell me about the convention experience? It's very different from us musicians that are just like play an hour set and then we get to chill out. You guys are really involved.
You know what though? I wouldn't say it's that different. Yeah, I mean we're involved the whole weekend. It'd be more like playing like a festival or something where you got a couple of shows
Several times.
Right, several
Yeah,
times.
right.
But the monetary aspect of it, it's very much what music has shifted to in the last 15 years or so. Because you know, my fiance Megan worked for Interscope when we both came out here in LA.
wow.
Yeah, she was in their publicity department, a small department, and she handled, you know, at the time it was like, you know, Robin Thicke and like Lady Gaga and all
Dang, wow.
all of their Interscope artists, and she in
Management or
they handled all their publicity. So she
Okay.
worked. She was like Jimmy IV was up here, and then a few other like two other guys were up here, and then she had a little team of 4. So if those artists were going to go anywhere. And she was there basically when it all imploded too. So, you know, obviously your listeners know or your viewers know that, you know, it used to be you'd make an album, you'd do a tour to promote an album, and you'd make your money
Right.
From your album sales.
but it's very backwards now.
It's
in
totally backwards. Now you know everybody streams everything, and before they were stealing everything. So
There's not a lot of money to be made in actual
in
album
making
sales.
an
Right.
album sales. It's $1 a track, you know, and by the time one person buys it, 100 people download it, so or just
Right.
stream it.
Or stream it,
Right.
which is pennies.
So
Right.
it's gone back to what it was in like the 30s and 40s, in which you made your money touring. You made your money
From shows, right?
Yeah, you made your money playing out, and while we still have cartoons and video games that still pay pretty well, those all that stuff, we can now supplement our income by doing these conventions, and that's sort of the format for that.
You know what's funny? Like one of the parallels is Rez posted on Twitter the other day how now she's headlining festivals, and she doesn't have. She used to have all this time after she performed or did a set to hang out with friends and like have a good time.
Fans, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And now that she's headlining, she just wants to go back to her hotel, or like nobody's up or whatever. That's kind of like we do late shows on Saturday nights.
Sucks, yeah.
And and then when we're done with the show, we're so conked out we just want to go to sleep.
I actually just saw her, I think last Saturday,
Oh, like
maybe last Friday.
in performance?
I saw
concert?
her perform. Yeah, she's too cool for me to hang out with.
Yeah.
I did hang out with Feed Me though.
Once she sees this video.
Oh yeah! We just
man,
totally bumped
she's
up your
totally
street
gonna
cred.
give you a call.
Dude, yeah, the street cred.
Nerd
Dude,
cred.
Rez is gonna be, yeah.
You're gonna get mad nerd cred from this, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll go into like Comic-Con. I'll be like a celebrity.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
No, you won't.
Totally.
We're not even celebrities at Comic-Con.
You'll get your own table. People come up to you and be like, "So you really did a podcast with Ray and Robbie?"
Favorite convention, or I guess con?
Do you have a favorite?
Favorite con?
I have lots of. I like them all.
Yeah.
They're all special for their own reasons.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like the PC
a
answer.
cool experience was when we went to New Zealand.
Yeah, that was a
We
good
did
one.
We did a con in New Zealand, and we got to tour around
Oh, wow.
northern New Zealand, so that was fun.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Super fun.
Yeah, we were there for about 2 weeks. That was a good one. I did Australia a couple years ago. That was a blast. But like, I like going to. Sometimes I'll have a killer time in like, you know, Texas or you know, Detroit
Right.
or something
I
like
guess
that.
it all depends on the turnout of the fans, and you know.
Yeah. And sometimes the small ones can be fun too for their own reasons. They're a little bit less like I did a pretty big show last weekend, and all I did was just sign the whole time and do like programming. So I didn't have any time to like really tour around the city or hang out with anybody or have a nice dinner or anything like that. And then sometimes you go to a smaller con and you know, you feel like you
Just
get to know
very
the
relaxed.
fans. Yeah, you get to know the fans a little better, and they all have their benefits, yeah. But it's always fun when we get to travel somewhere cool, for sure.
Have you all ever done Otakon?
We have done Otakon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
together we
That's
did.
one of the only ones I've been to.
That's a big one. That's
Which
the
one? Well,
biggest one in the Northeast.
Which
Okay,
one,
you
in
got it.
Vegas or yeah? She's like,
gotta go.
East Coast one.
She's
You
getting
can't
the boot.
sit.
which one?
I'm gonna let her out.
The one on the East
I'm
Coast.
not gonna break away. Let
Baltimore.
her.
Okay, give us a second. We're gonna let this dog out.
No, talk to her. Talk. He's talking about Otakon in Baltimore.
Ah!
Zelda, come on, right now.
Go.
Let's go. You're getting the boot. Come on, you're getting the boot.
Yeah, Otakon in Baltimore. That's the one we went to. When did you go?
Perfect. I went in 2015, I think.
2015. We went
While
in
back.
2016, I want to say.
Missed
We
you
just
by
missed
1
ya.
year.
Yeah.
Get wrecked. So when you guys are working on, I guess, different projects like video games and movies or I guess TV shows, how do they differ like in a workflow scenario? Because I know that there's a lot more involved with making a game. Or am I completely ignorant to that?
Well, it's different processes. Difference between making a game, making animation, animated programs.
Totally different. Yeah.
I don't know. How would you?
Well, typically we're alone in a video game session unless it's motion capture. In animated sessions, it's usually a group record. Anime, we're usually alone. A season of television takes about a year, I would say, for a cartoon, and and a video game could take about
a year to record.
And then maybe do pickups.
Yeah, and then for anime,
I can imagine video games would be like less linear though. Like you have more to record.
Definitely depends on the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, some games you just walk through a story, like Final Fantasy. You just
Right.
walk through the story, and then you might end up doing a ton of like sort of situational dialogue. But
Do you guys do like actual Foley for the characters, or is that someone else doing that? Like grunts and pants and things like that?
Unfortunately, we do not have vocal performers.
stunt grunters,
Stunt grunts.
stunt grunts.
Right,
Yeah, we do all that ourselves.
Yeah. That's all. We call them efforts. And that's typically what we'll do there. Foley, the sound effect part of it, that's usually a
Different
Foley
department.
It's usually a Foley artist. One
Right.
really weird, talented dude or guy or dude or girl in a room full of weird stuff making
Yeah.
weird noises. But we do
That's
our
so
own.
fascinating to me.
Yeah, we do our
Foley,
own
yeah.
yells and screams and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes it more canon or
Yeah.
kind of cohesive because you
Yeah.
guys do all the, I guess, those yourselves.
Well,
That's cool.
the celebs don't sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
They don't. So
they'll have
so
stunt grunters for sure.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I guess on a TV show, it's more like just multiple takes of the same lines.
Well, we do TV shows like they're a radio play. So
Yes.
we have a
Right.
bunch of people in a room, and we actually go from top to bottom. So we'll start at the beginning of a show, and we'll take like 2 or 3 pages of dialogue, and we'll run it all together with other people in the room, and that gives us a chance to react off of each other and make it sound real and live. And it doesn't happen all the
So
time
it's like
that.
it's
but
kind of like a reading circle with microphones
Yeah, you could say that.
yeah.
in a way,
Yeah, but
like
it's
a screenplay reading.
yeah, but I would say it's less like a screenplay reading in the sense that we're going full out. Like if you go to see
Right.
like a typical staged reading, like it might be the first time they're seeing it, or it'll be a little
It's
bit.
just the characters reading
Yeah.
the dialogue versus actually acting it out.
Yeah, when we're in there, our final product, whatever their circle takes are, usually what ends up going on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
That would be the key difference. So we have to familiarize ourselves with the scripts a little bit more before we go in there, and we make a lot of choices on the fly and character choices on the fly and stuff like that. But mostly it's it's a little bit of prep. And
So it's largely, you guys don't improvise much then.
depends on the show.
We can, yeah.
Okay.
There's room for that sometimes. I'd say definitely on the more comedic shows, or shows that have a lot more comedy. They want you to improvise. They want you to put some ad libs in and make it come to life and make it funny and bring your personality to the character. Because that's why they hire you ultimately, is because they like the way that you perform the character. They like
How
what
you
you're doing,
approach,
and they
right.
like your sensibilities and how you approach it. Yeah. So.
How you approach the characters or whatever. Yeah.
So there's room for that.
So in voice acting, you guys have agents similar to screen actors.
Mm-hmm. Almost
How
identical.
How exactly
Yeah.
does that work?
It's identical to screen actors. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it?
They take the same amount of money.
yeah.
No, they're great.
They get us auditions. They execute the contracts. And
They pitch us for certain projects if we're right for them.
They pitch
They'll
us.
push us. They'll negotiate.
They fight for us. I love my agents because they got my back. I feel,
Yeah.
that's the point I think of having a good agent is someone who really has your back and trusts you and you can trust them. So
Yeah, I was always curious of how that world is different from voice acting. I guess not too much of a difference at all.
No, the only reason that you would differentiate them is because they just specialize in a niche area of the market. So
Right.
My agency has a really sort of we're a smaller agent. Well, we're a very well-known agency, but we're smaller for just the boots on the ground voice actors, but we have a huge celebrity department. So we have a bunch of movie stars, voiceover actors, and they have their own agent, and they get some of the same stuff we do, but sometimes they don't, but it's very much the same. So you might have a movie star who's repped across the board for TV, film, anything on camera, and then they'll have a specialty voiceover agent that just handles voiceover stuff because it is such a specific little part of the entertainment world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever considered doing screen acting, or strictly voiceover?
We're both trained in screen acting.
Sure. I did some for my first couple years in LA. Yeah.
I did some as well.
But you just became more comfortable in voice work, or
not necessarily more comfortable,
Yeah.
but we kind of fell into it. We found that we
Right.
had a unique talent for it because there's not. I'd say not every screen actor can. I don't want to be.
Well, it's whether you can just say it because it's the reverse too. Sometimes you put
Yeah.
a screen actor in
Yeah.
front of a microphone and they fall apart. But sometimes you put a voice actor who's never done any on-camera stuff in front of a camera and they fall apart.
they fall apart,
And,
right?
and even though they're both actors, it's just a different skill set. You wouldn't want to put every like little intimate film actor on stage either. Maybe you know what I mean. They might not do very well there. So I don't think you have to be good at all of it to be good at one or the other. So I've seen on camera people come in and do a voiceover session, people that I like, that I
Yeah.
respect as good actors, and you go, oh man, it's just a train.
Everyone has unique talents,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
even in any genre of media, I guess.
Yeah.
Music especially.
Yeah,
Same thing.
absolutely.
How about you guys give me like a one-liner in the voice of one of your favorite characters?
How about you play us something from one of your songs?
Yeah, come on, man. The character I was doing today, his voice was way up here, and he was sort of just like kind of like a quiet sort of urban guy, but his real high pitch, like almost like Mike Tyson-y almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like you do all sorts of. You do dumb stuff. The first thing Max ever did with me, he was doing like a full-on monster voice.
I was doing before that was the Poltergeist,
Oh, the Poltergeist. That's right.
Yeah.
That character.
which I'm not gonna do. I love the Poltergeist. I actually don't mind doing it.
It's a throat
but,
shredder.
But like he was supposed to be annoying.
Yeah, they
like,
cast
that
the
was-
right guy.
Yeah,
That's true.
You know, typecast. What can I say? The Poltergeist.
Dude,
his
dude.
catchphrase was honk,
And he would talk like this, and he would annoy the other characters on the show.
and he would like knock stuff over and
Yeah.
literally
That
just
sounds
be annoying.
nothing like Max. It's unbelievable. It's like you just turn on that voice.
Yeah, well, it's fun. We have that's well, going back to your last question, that's a big reason why I decided to do this. I mean, like I look a certain way, you look a certain way, everybody looks a certain way,
Right.
and on camera, that's really a huge part of what it's all about.
It's like
so,
you put on a persona.
Yeah, and when you're behind the microphone, you get to let all of that go away, and it doesn't matter that I'm a 220-pound Indian. I can play like a Native American. I can play like a little kid, or I can play a big giant monster, or it doesn't matter. I can play a white guy, black guy, brown guy, any kind of guy, or kind of girl.
I can only play a white guy.
Yeah, not necessarily true. Not necessarily true. But yeah, that's one of the freeing things about voiceover that I really appreciate.
I think it's largely the same for musicians too. Under different aliases, they can kind of they put on a persona of what.
Totally, like Garth Brooks and Chris Gaines. I mean, just.
Yep.
I'm kidding. I was kidding, by the way. Yeah, nobody gets that 90s reference. No one that's watching your vlog
I was
gets
born
it.
in
Yeah,
1990.
my audience isn't old enough. So speaking of music, the reason we initially met is because they wanted to do Ableton lessons with me. What kind of got you interested in music and production and that end of the industry when you're already so invested in voiceover?
That's been part of I guess both of us. It's been part of our lives forever, since we were kids. I took 6 years of piano lessons and 2 years of playing in a band in high school, and
Nice.
and then it was always something that I was interested, like creating music, and especially electronic music, was something I was always interested in,
Yeah.
and I never pursued it. I never went after it, and I just decided that I'm at a good place in my career where I can now. I can do that, and there's little risk in doing it. And even if it's not something that is necessarily lucrative, it's something that is, to me, very fulfilling. And
Right.
I was saying like you can't just sort of walk into a voiceover booth and be like, I feel like making some voiceover today. But you can go walk up to a piano or open up Ableton and be like, I want to create a song.
Create music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different art form for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
A
it's
different way of expression.
and it's always been a part of I grew up with music. I mean, like, that's how my family and I celebrated.
Yeah.
My grandpa would play piano, my mom would play guitar, and then some family member would jump on drums or sax. So somebody was always just playing
A jam session.
a jam.
Right.
Oh, like an old school, like not country music, but like country jam session. Like that's all I ever did. And I was in multiple bands in high school and college and even in grad school. And then I've been lucky enough in my voiceover career to be able to sing in a bunch of shows that I do. And I do.
Oh wow, that's a really interesting avenue.
Yeah, and
Because you're singing as the character.
and it's funny for I've maybe sang in a dozen animated projects and video games and stuff, and I've
Right.
done 150 of them. So it's only 10%. But the second thing that pops up on Google is Robbie Daymond singing. So I mean that
Wow.
that just shows how much people like gravitate toward music. So when Max
Right.
so when Max came to me and said, "Hey, I want to learn Ableton," I was like, "Yeah, I'll do my best." But he's been charging ahead with it. So I'm like,
Max is actually one of the best students I've ever had in terms of like
Yeah.
progression and being on top of things.
so
What were we
Max
talking
is-
about?
Wait a second.
We're
back.
I'm gonna go back
It's
to
gonna
where I
look
was
weird.
ending. Yeah, I got it. So like I was saying before the break, Max has really taken the lead on all the music stuff, and he's just he's the one who really sort of went for it. So we both have a music background, and he's been taking classes and obviously working with you, and he's really getting Ableton unlocked, and I'm just slowly behind him, sort of plodding along, learning the basics, so that if we come in and decide to do some music together, at least when he's working Ableton, I won't be just an idiot wondering
Right.
what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'll rely on him to be the main engineer, but I'll be able to participate musically if I at least understand the basics of the software.
And you've got some
I think.
background in Pro Tools anyway, which is
Yeah, we're recording in Pro Tools right now.
I hope that once you guys like get more invested into music that you like somehow incorporate your voice acting.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Freaking No Mana for Mousetrap. He's one of their bigger artists over there. He actually tweeted at me. He totally wants Max to do like a One Punch Man vocal pack.
Oh,
for
yeah.
him to like just get like some like really silly I don't know, like Japanese-esque
Yeah.
sensei vocals would be sick.
Yeah. Well, I don't speak Japanese,
Yeah.
but
S.
So the
Yeah, yeah.
English
Yeah.
version.
Would that be like dubstep? I don't know.
Dubstep,
yeah,
right.
Dubstep.
Yeah.
So who are some of your biggest inspirations in voice acting and I guess now music as well?
In voice acting,
Yeah.
oh man, there's so many. So I think we're both fortunate enough that we've gotten to work with like
Yeah.
pretty much all the people that inspired us to.
That's really incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I should name some names, I
Name
guess.
some names,
Like on Transformers Rescue Bots, I got to work with Maurice LaMarche,
Yep.
who's the brain from Pinky and the Brain, and he's like half the voices on Futurama and
Wow.
so many other things.
Yeah.
Toucan Sam. And
Nice.
Steve Bloom, his one of his really popular characters was from Cowboy Bebop. and the name
Spike.
Oh, wow.
Spike Spiegel.
Yeah, Orochimaru on Naruto, and then and Wolverine forever. I mean, but he's also one of the most prolific voice actors ever. He's
That's
been in a
really
million
cool.
stuff.
Yeah.
And without naming every character from every voice actor, like a few of the other ones that like I worked with at the beginning was like Jason Marsden,
Sure.
and DC Douglas,
Jeff
and
Bennett.
Jeff Bennett.
That's a huge one for me.
Yeah.
Rob Paulson is a huge one for me. Sort of some more modern people like Eric Bauza is one of my, I think, one of the
Definitely.
most talented people in the business right
Definitely.
now. There's just a lot of great people that you get to work with.
Yeah.
I would say musically for me, one of my favorite, we talked about this a little bit before, Julian, one of my favorite bands is Chromeo.
Oh,
And
man.
I think it's because I grew up on like funk and Motown and like sort of like late 70s disco, but also like R&B and blues and soul. And then like in the early 2000s, all of a sudden, here comes this band.
Chromeo, right?
Chromeo, that plays this music that's all the things that I love mixed with like modern electro funk. And I was just like, they're one of my favorite bands. Like whenever I get a chance to see them, I'll go see
Yeah,
them.
the first
I think
time
we-
I came out to visit LA, my friend works at this venue, and I was fortunate enough to get on stage with Chromeo and Miha.
Awesome.
And that was
wow.
like one of the biggest, like, okay, I have to move to LA moments
Yeah.
for me. When I visited here and
Yeah.
I was on stage with Chromeo, I'm seeing like Dave like freaking going in on, I think he was DJing.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they're an incredible band. One of my favorites too. What
Yeah.
about you, Max? Who are your musical inspirations?
Oh, Chromeo is also a big one. I think whatever music I make or we make together would be something with an element of funk in there.
Yeah.
You know, there's some sort of funky stuff going on in the music because it's a lot of the stuff that I like too. Electronic artist-wise, I really like Porter Robinson and Maddion.
Very cool
and-
guys.
And Justice.
Oh, yeah.
One of my big ones. And I mean, Deadmau5 as well. Deadmau5.
Hey.
I mean, he was probably one of the first guys that I
Yeah, he's a legend.
obsessive
Him
over.
and Skrillex, classic guys.
I remember, but now I'm going to date myself, though. I remember when legit electronic music was coming in to Vegas in the club scene before the sort of ultra lounge
Yeah.
mega DJ club scene really blew up. And back then, I was listening to guys like Seb Fontaine and Paul Oakenfold.
Wow, the legends.
and,
Yeah.
like the really
The
sort of
old
classic.
school house legends. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of their stuff that I was listening to was the first time that I actually really listened to electronic music.
That's really cool
And-
that you got in before it was cool.
Yeah, right. Well, some of that stuff was really well. I remember before dubstep, my buddy was showing me some sort of like underground stuff, and it was before dubstep was ever a thing, and it was this electronic music, but it had that deep. It literally sounded like somebody recorded an electric razor and then changed it,
Yeah.
and it would 5 years later would become what would become as what we think of as
Dubstep.
like modern bass, like modern, like
Yeah.
because it was never that before.
Yeah, I was
And,
fortunate enough to get into it right before the rise of like Skrillex.
Yeah.
And I witnessed like his first EP on Mousetrap when it first came
wow.
out. And so I don't know, I was like 11 or 12 at the time, and like I was listening to house music, and then I saw the dubstep rise, which is cool. I guess that was kind of before it was cool as well.
Yeah.
But you kind of got us all trumped with the Paul Oakenfold.
Well, some of my old school
I don't-
influences were like the Crystal Method
Oh yeah.
and
Classics.
DJ
Oh,
Shadow.
Infected
man.
Mushroom.
Infected Mushroom. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, that was a big one for
I
me.
saw them a few months
Yes.
back. Yeah.
Oh wow. But don't make me bust out my my old like CD collection.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
You feel like you'd have to like immediately put a pacifier in your mouth, like you're going to a late '90s rave. But yeah, man, it's really cool to see that electronic music that used to be something that only like club rats and rave kids.
It was an
listened to.
underground thing. Yeah.
Yeah, as an underground thing. Yeah, literally, like I would get in college, I would get like burned like CDs that somebody downloaded off
Mixed
Napster.
CDs, right?
Yeah, like but stuff that nobody else was listening to that you couldn't really hear anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it is cool to see the way it's become popular and mainstream, and now all the different variations. Max is Max is 7-8 years younger than me, 8 years younger, I think.
Wow.
And he was introducing me to some stuff that I'd heard maybe a year or two ago, but I forgot. And now they've blown up, and they're these huge artists. That it's really awesome to see that stuff, the way it's evolved.
So, piggybacking off of that, like, what are some of your favorite songs or albums of all time?
All time.
If you had to pick a top maybe 5.
Oh, that's tough.
Oh.
That's really tough. I think Rage Against the Machine, Evil Empire is one of my favorites of all time. I would say that Smokey Robinson's Greatest Hits is one of the best albums ever made. I would say that one of my Michael Jackson's Thriller is one of my favorite albums ever. God, it's like all the things that you have to pick from.
Right. I did a video a few weeks back on my top 10 artists of all time, and it was just brutal trying to narrow it down.
And you had time to research. These are just off the top of my head.
Yeah, I gave you no notice.
I can give you 3 artists. I can't even give you albums.
Okay.
But 3 of my favorite artists ever are Muse.
Nice.
Foo Fighters.
Dave
And Michael
Grohl.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Those are are 3 of my favorite artists of all time. But
So growing up, you were
pick an
listening
album.
to more rock and.
Growing up, I was listening to all oldies. So
Oh, man.
Same.
Lots of Beatles.
Classic rock. For
Yeah.
Classic
me,
rock. Me too.
Yeah, Motown, R&B, classic rock. And I think that's largely due to my parents, I would say. Like, their musical influence came down on me a little bit.
There's a radio
Same.
station here in LA called K Earth 101.
Oh, yeah.
And they just play oldies. And that was my entire childhood.
Yeah, K Earth's still one of the best radio stations to ever exist.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I knew about K Earth before I even, like, back when I was like DJing in undergrad in college, like radio DJing, like, because you would talk about, see what was being played, and like, but the sad part is now some stuff from when I was like in middle school is now on the oldies station, and that's just scary.
Yeah. No.
What is it? It's over 25 years old,
Right,
right? And
it's old
and it's going to be on the classic, like the oldie station, and like all of a sudden they'll be playing like Nirvana on the oldie station. I'm like, wait,
Oh,
what?
no. Right.
What's happening?
That's when you know.
That's when you just cash it in. You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're playing Missy Elliott on the
Oh,
oldies
yeah.
station.
Yeah, right.
You're like,
Yeah, oh, and hip hop and R&B was a huge. I would say, as much as classic rock and Motown and funk, I have just as much like 90s
Hip-hop, R&B.
rap, hip hop,
Yeah.
and R&B.
Yeah, I definitely grew up in that as well, being from
Yeah.
DC, where that's a predominant genre.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you guys, I think, Max, you're from LA, yeah?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, where
Born
are you
and
from,
raised.
Robbie?
I'm originally from St. Louis.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Missouri. And if you're talking about, now if we're talking music and you're talking, oh God, my parents would ever hear this, they'd murder me. When I was in high school, like young high school,
Yeah.
I would go into St. Louis, hop on the metro and go to East St. Louis, and I would see Nelly and the St. Lunatics play in like Soulard on the Missouri side and then on the Illinois side, just to hear before they blew up, and when like before like dirty Southern rap and like St. Louis rap was a thing, and like that is nothing that any like 14-year-old, 15-year-old should be doing.
Yeah.
It's going to East St. Louis in the late 90s.
Yeah.
It was
alone,
not a
right?
safe. Yeah, not a safe. Well, I usually wasn't alone. I usually had a little crew that I would go with.
Good.
But yeah, man. There's good music. There's good music there, but there's good music everywhere, I guess.
And you moved out here in, you said 2007.
Yeah, but I traveled all around. Basically, I left Missouri when I was 19 and traveled for 6 or 7 years between like college and doing theater and stuff like
if
that.
Robbie told you his whole life story, you'd think he's lived 2 lives. At this point.
I've done a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah.
So
Don't worry.
So
in
the
8 or 9
actual-
years, you'll have lived 2 lives.
Yeah. So the media brought you out here then.
It's. I mean, listen. Outside of New York and maybe Chicago and Atlanta, maybe. There's nowhere else we can really do what we do full time.
There's nothing
at
like
least.
Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, New York used to be a lot more. Oh, Canada, but we're not Canadian, so you'd have to go up there and expatriate to do cartoons up there. But no, I came out to LA because it's the only place you can do it.
Can I tell you something?
That's it.
Didn't know expatriate was a verb.
Can you? I guess, right? Oh, you're not an expatriate. To expatriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a verb.
I didn't know that. I didn't know we could verb.
Sorry, we're geeking and we're nerding out over here. Yeah.
And then Max, what part of LA are you originally from?
I was born in Santa Monica and
Wow.
grew up in the San Fernando Valley.
Wow, so you've been here your whole life.
Yeah, my whole life. I'm like third generation, second, third generation Californian. I don't even know. Third generation.
Were your grandparents from here? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There you go. Yeah.
Wow, that's
There you
insane. Yeah. Well, that's really fortunate to grow up in this city, I think.
This is where I've always wanted to be.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it until I got here.
And I don't want to be anywhere else, so I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, just applying for colleges and being like, I don't want to leave California.
I don't really want to go there, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I got a full ride to somewhere in Colorado, and my parents were like, so you're going there, right? And I was like, no. Why would you ever think that?
Yeah.
I was born
Colorado's great. I think
Colorado's
Colorado's about as close as you can get to California, but it's in the mountains.
People or whatever. Yeah, but like
too cold,
I
right?
couldn't take the
cold.
cold.
Too cold.
I grew up where
No way.
in winter a cold day is 73.
Right,
You know,
right.
73 degrees. So like, I
You weren't ready for the cold.
Yeah.
Right.
And as it was, like I went to UC Berkeley my first semester, and I still came down. Like after my first semester, I was like, you know what? I'd rather be in LA. So
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's so much entertainment here, and you feel it everywhere that you go. Whether you're going for a coffee and there's half a dozen people writing screenplays in the corner. I mean, or you go out to lunch.
yeah, I never think about that, but it is true.
Yeah.
You go
It's
to
like,
a,
me and my friends have an ongoing joke that like every Uber driver here is like an aspiring artist. It's like to the T. I think every single one I've taken here is like that.
Dude, if there had been Uber here when I moved to LA, I definitely would have been your Uber
My
driver.
roommate,
Yeah.
like
does
for
Uber on the
sure.
side. Yeah.
Of course, why not? I'd take that over catering any day for sure.
There's definitely an atmosphere about being in LA and being in Hollywood where all this film and music history has just happened.
Well, and it is a dream eater too, though.
Yes.
I mean, this if you don't figure this city out fast, it will kick your ass. Like I'll joke around and I'll meet like some kid or whatever out in like an industry thing, and I'll be like, hey, it's good to meet you. Like, let me have your number or something. And I'll be like, how long you been in town? And like, like 4 months. I was like, all right, hit me up in another 8 months.
Yeah.
I was like, no new friends unless you've been here for over a year.
Right.
Because I don't want to invest in you and then you go back to Idaho. I can't do it.
Because people are in and out of here so fast.
I'm kidding. I'm not that mean.
yes, he is.
It's true to an extent, though.
Yeah.
It's so expensive to live here, and it's kind of demands a work ethic,
Yeah. And your talent,
yeah.
your talent will not carry you through this city, no matter
It's
how good you
it's
are.
a combination, right?
Yeah, unless you're driven and hardy, this city will chew you up and spit you out. I've seen it. I mean, literally, dozens and dozens of times.
Yep.
But it's a great place to be if you're creative.
I've seen so many people come in and out.
I had a look, I'm from LA.
Right.
And when I was first started doing voiceover, I wasn't great. It's when it was the learning phase. I was taking acting classes, and I wasn't a natural born actor. I really don't know a lot of people who are natural born actors. Even the natural born actors,
Right.
Even the Heath Ledgers, they go on a movie set and they get training while they're doing it.
Absolutely.
So, but anyway, I remember like someone trying to convince me not to do voiceover, and subtly, very subtly,
Right.
like I expressed interest in something else, and they were like, you know what? You'd be really good at that. You
Right.
should
It's like a sneak
do that
diss.
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Because
yeah.
and I think the point being that because she knows how brutal that
How
this town
difficult
and
it actually
competitive.
is, right?
Yeah.
And she was trying to save me from the, she could see like I wasn't necessarily bookable at that point, like, and so she was trying to help me out, but
you remember those things, and they fuel you
Totally.
for the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes those people are wrong, and sometimes they're right. And then you gotta learn some more. And and that's another thing, is being savvy enough to know whether they're right or wrong.
Yeah.
Because they'll have a ton of people tell you that you can't do it.
And
that's a common thing. They'll be like, you can't do this, you can't do this. And there's that old no, you can't listen to those people. You gotta go and get it.
Right.
And yes, that's true, but also, if everyone's telling you don't do this,
maybe
don't
it's not right for you. Right.
Yeah, don't let your audition at American Idol be what tells you that you shouldn't be a singer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that goes to an extent for sure.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think everyone's meant to do something,
Yeah. Well, these kids come and ask us, how do you do this? When we go into these conventions, that's pretty much the first question we get asked, the most common at least. And
As far as voiceover, one of the things we like to suggest often is a site called iwanttobea.voiceactor.com.
oh yeah,
And it's a site by great voice actor, prolific guy named D. Bradley Baker, and he did like some of his big stuff is he's a voice of Klaus from American Dad.
Oh, wow.
And Appa and Momo from Legend of Korra,
Or
not Legend of Korra, Avatar,
Yeah.
The Last Airbender.
but also so much work. And he got asked this question so much, he just made a website that he updates regularly that it's totally free. And so now when he does that, he just like, go to my website.
That's a really
And the great
cool-
part, and now we get to tell people, go to his website.
Go to the
because it is
website.
the best resource that we never had as
Right.
as voice actors, like trying to figure all this out. It's literally it starts you from the beginning and takes you through like getting an agent and auditions and everything.
And there are people that I know intimately well that ask me advice on how to do this, and I know their work, and I just go, I don't know what the path is for you, because my path was different than Max's.
Everyone has a
than
different
anyone's.
path to the top.
Yeah, and you get to a certain point where it's just advice, and giving blanket advice to someone you've never met before.
Right.
That's pretty tough.
Now, do you think that
the
the hardest part of the path was meeting the right people, or do you think it was perfecting the craft? Or was that simultaneous?
Gosh. It's both. I went through a period where I felt like I was ready, and I had such a hard time getting my foot in the door. I think that might be the most difficult thing. Like, even if you hone your craft alone or however you're doing it.
Yeah. I
making
definitely
those
see both sides
connections.
of it, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but then if you're not good enough, when it's time, it's like
Right.
your Jeremy Lin moment. Like someone passes you the ball, and this is your moment. And if you're not ready to step up to the plate,
Right.
I just mixed baseball and basketball analogies.
These are sports.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if you didn't say anything, I wouldn't have known.
Who Jeremy Lin
Yeah,
was.
for real, to be honest.
No, but like, it's like, yo, you get your moment.
Right.
Like, are you ready to?
You have to be
do
ready
this?
to grab it, right?
Yeah, totally. So I think that's a big
It's like
part
an
of it. So you
age-old
gotta-
argument of you don't need to have any ability if you know the right people, but I don't think that's necessarily.
I don't think
case.
it's true
It's
either.
not.
Nah.
It's not. You
'Cause-
can know all the right people, and still it just never works out for one reason or another.
Unless
Or
you're
vice
like a face to a brand, which is
Yeah, but even then you'll get exposed as a fraud.
right.
Eventually,
Eventually,
I think
and you'll lose the
your
respect of the whatever.
yeah, your people will turn on you if you're not producing good art for them. I think. Yeah, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
Right,
Everybody
right.
says, oh, everything's so superficial, or they only want to use you for this or that, and you go, well, no, you're an artist, and if you're not producing good art anymore, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody has their what do they call it?
Moment.
Whatever
15
minutes of fame.
Yeah, 15, I think. But
yeah.
but I'm trying to stretch it out a little bit longer than that. Come on.
Right.
But yeah, you could also be fantastic, and just that's the sad
And
part
never
about it, too.
make it. Right.
and will not even ever get the chance.
Yeah.
Never get
You
the
could-
opportunity.
We
to
know, like personally, we know a lot of people, and we know how talented they are, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
When
And it's not even always just making the connections. I've walked people in the door and given them certain of opportunities, and I think they're ready for them, and it might not ever manifest. It's just some of it's timing and luck.
Yeah, that's where I go. Yeah, it's timing, luck, but I'm always like, I don't get it. Doesn't make sense to me. I kind of have to let that go because it's frustrating when you see someone so talented, and for whatever reason they can't move forward and take the next step.
And to be fair, it's easy to, and I feel the same way, but it's easy to say that from our position,
Right?
Because we sit from an elevated position and go, I don't know how I kind of know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do the things for you that I did for me, and then they don't work for that person, and you go,
right. Then it's
okay, your
tricky
turn.
because then you can't explain how to do it.
Kind of. I mean, you can set them on the right path, but then again, everyone's path
Like
is
for me in
different.
YouTube,
And
I accidentally got into it. Like I didn't really plot that out.
Yeah, and when it doesn't happen, I think one of the major things that where you go, here's the stuff that worked for me, and you give that to the other person, and it doesn't work for them. I think what it comes down to after that is just determination and the long
That
game,
too.
and
Yep.
how
Yeah.
long are you willing to stick this out for?
I'm a firm believer that if you continue working at it, you'll get there. I mean, as to an extent of you're okay at what you do,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Well, Max.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, Max knows this story. And I've told it before, but like when I was deciding at 22 whether I was going to continue on to grad school or not, that was a big choice for me. Like, do I go through another 3 years of college?
yeah,
So I made a deal with myself. I said, well, if I'm going to dedicate 7 years total to the craft of learning my craft, when I get done, I'm going to dedicate 7 years where I just go after it hardcore. And that deal had another end to it. If I wasn't making my living full time doing what I wanted to do in my craft
Right.
at 34, I guess I would have been, I'm out. I'm out because I there were other things I wanted,
Right.
I mean, out of life that other than just art. And very thankfully, I was able to hit that goal a little earlier than it happened. But I was totally ready. I was like, I'm going to go for this. So
Right.
it gave me my motivation. But it also gave me an end point to where I was like, you know what? If I haven't cracked this nut in 7 years of school and 7 years professionally, it's not going to happen. I better shift my make a pivot.
change your sail direction or whatever they call it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
totally.
There's a story of Dylan Francis who did a similar thing where he was in school and he dropped out and he told his parents, like, if I don't make it in a year, then I'll go back to school. And then
He gave himself 1 year.
That's tough.
now we have Dylan Francis though, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of put, I guess, a I don't know, a fire under him to work
Yeah.
fast and hard,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Well, and you've got to, there's, for young people especially, like when you're in school or whatever, you've got your parents maybe, but definitely your teachers in the school sort of at your back pushing you to do well. But then once you get set loose into the world, there's no one to do that. You can
Right.
just as well just say, just F off to everything and don't do anything and just become a waste.
Right.
Or you can go for it. And how hard you go for it every day depends on what kind of fire you light for yourself, because
And I
nobody
think
else is going to
largely,
do it for
like,
you.
Yeah.
The ultimate thing to take away is like you have to do what you want to do, regardless of what that is. You don't want to not enjoy what your life.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, you
Absolutely.
can be completely broke and doing what you enjoy doing, and be more happy than,
And
Yeah.
that's kind of where the music thing came out of,
Right.
because I was doing some stuff that wasn't necessarily as fulfilling creatively as I wanted it to
Right.
be, and I decided that the career that I have allows me I have a lot of extra time when I'm not in sessions
when you're
or
not
I'm
in
not
sessions.
auditioning, and I wanted to fill that somehow with something that I purely enjoy doing, and that was music. And and even like I said, like even if it's not something that becomes something that's lucrative or turns into a separate career or something on its own, it's just something that I have for
You
the rest
enjoy.
of my life that I enjoy doing. Yeah.
My fiance knows me so well, and when I start to get grumpy, it's not because I'm, for any other reason. other than I'm not creatively fulfilled. And it sounds weird to hear a person who is working full time say that they might not feel creatively fulfilled every day, even though you're doing your art every day. It's just not the way it works sometimes, because when it becomes your job, some days are better than others, I mean, and you have to have something else that feeds you. And right now that's for us, that's why we do these live shows, because it's comedy and improv and live shows.
Really cool.
It's why Max wants to work on music. Like, I'm working on a children's book right now. Like,
wow.
It's just you just have to have something that drives you forward. And it doesn't mean that what you're doing day to day is any less. You're not getting any less out of it.
Yeah.
But
right.
once you've done it for a certain amount of time, like, I think that's a big argument why a lot of musicians, like, you could argue that some musicians, their albums definitely get better and better and better. Some they get worse and worse and worse.
Progressively worse because they feel obligated to do so.
Yeah.
Or to follow a specific style that they've established.
Whatever the motivation is, it comes from somewhere. And I made a joke about Garth Brooks and Chris Gaines earlier, but there's no way you would do something that weird with your career unless you had to.
Right.
To be that mega famous, to sell 100 million like albums of, like, I think it was one album, and then to do a huge pivot and do this weird persona with a whole different kind of music and
like
all of that.
Midlife crisis.
Yeah. Right,
Exactly,
but it had to come.
yeah.
It had to come from somewhere. He must not have been feeling fulfilled somehow. So you do something creative, really risky. But I bet you one thing for sure. I bet you he does not regret the time he spent as that persona.
Right. So, to wrap things up, guys, I just wanted to ask you: do you have anything specific to say to the audience? These are musicians, obviously, people that are coming up in music and music production, but in a similar kind of vein of media. Do you have any advice for upcoming musicians or artists that, I don't know, are trying to get into it, or just life advice in general?
Yeah. Well, there's this sort of old adage of sort of being nice to everyone because you don't know who they'll be.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing when you're an artist, is making a good impression every time you walk into the room.
Right.
And that definitely doesn't mean being fake at all.
Yes.
I think you have to be you. Nobody wants like this cheesy persona all the time. But a lot of our job is like brightening up the room, making sure the people that we're working with have a good day, making sure you remember your engineer's name, all of that stuff, because in the end they're the person that makes you sound good. That's a big part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. I've met some people that that don't have the greatest attitude in both, in everything, in music and also in the acting realm.
Right.
And I just choose not to be around those people.
Yeah.
And so if I feel that way about someone else, then you got to imagine that if you don't carry around a good attitude with you, then you're turning off people to you.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And that's definitely not it. I mean, like, how you treat people is a huge part of it. Yeah. I think you got to have artistic integrity, but also be open to outside influence.
Yes, absolutely.
I feel like that was part of some of my growing pains, where it was not self-confidence, but
You're
like
set on doing things your way.
Yeah, and I was mistaking artistic integrity with stubbornness.
Right.
And not listening to people who, your director's not always right, your producer's not always right. Sometimes you got to fight for what you know is right, but other times you got to let your guard down and at least try something different.
Get out
and
of your
you
comfort zone.
Yeah, you might find yourself in and I think that applies not just to acting. I think it applies to all art.
Industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta be tough though too. You gotta be able to take criticism.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one because people are gonna shit on your work no matter what. Especially now with our internet culture that we have. You can't.
Everything's a mile a minute. Yeah.
Everything's a mile a minute. Everybody's got an opinion, and it's made the internet.
Now everyone's anonymous. So.
Yeah,
right.
And the internet has made everyone an anonymous critic. So when I do a piece of art, if like 70% of the people like it, I'm like, woo,
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah.
Like great. And
Because even if
you gotta have thick skin.
even if you're saving children from a school bus that's about to
Sure.
run into the river, you're gonna have 5 dislikes on that video. Why?
Right.
Yeah.
Why are there dislikes? You're saving children.
Yeah.
People just like to watch the world burn.
I suppose.
I really believe I really do. Some people do, I think.
Yeah.
But I would also say that like being thick-skinned is good because you're gonna have a lot of rejection.
Yes.
And it'll only make you better and stronger and tougher. You know, we do probably 500 auditions a year, a couple of hundreds of auditions a year. And you know, if you're booking, 5 or 10%, you're killing
On
it.
fire.
Right.
You're on fire.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
It's the same with music too, label
Sure.
submissions and stuff like that.
Yeah, if every year you get like 5 or 10% of your tracks in the top 40s,
yeah, they're doing great.
you're doing
You're
fine.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Clearly, we don't know much about music.
We're gonna have to learn a little bit
A
more.
little bit more. Just a little bit more.
Awesome, guys. You have any final words, Max?
Stay in school, kids.
Don't do drugs unless they make you better at what you do.
You can find out more about us on Twitter and the Instagram.
Those
It's
links
just-
will be in the description of this podcast, by the way.
Hey.
Meow, 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 meow. And yeah, I don't have any good advice for people. Just what Robbie said.
No, man. You said we said good advices. Don't listen to us. We're
Watch
stupid.
One Punch Man.
Sure, that.
Yeah. But most of all, just keep making art out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's so important, especially in these dark days, that we've got good people out there making music and drawing great things and pouring their hearts out in the acting world.
Be creative. Follow your heart. Do what feels right.
Yeah.
Don't conform to something if it doesn't feel good. Just keep making what you love.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to thank Robbie and Max for coming on to the podcast today. Make sure to check them out in the description of this podcast. Thank you for listening / watching if you're on YouTube. And I am Julian of Julian Gray Media. We will talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace.
A drill.